Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Ready for Rome webinar hosted by Italia Pass. My name is Shelley Ruel, and I am the community manager for Italia Pass. And I am joined today by my colleague, Sofia Baragaglia, and she is an Italia Pass Italy experience specialist. And I've lived here for over 20 years in Rome, and Sofia is originally from Italy. So between the both of us, we have a lot of years of combined experience in Italy that we are looking forward to sharing with you today. Before we get started, I wanted to just quickly go over what is Italia Pass because perhaps many of you don't actually know. You're probably here at the webinar because you purchased tickets with Italia Rail. And Italia Rail is part of a family of brands, the Italia brands, and it includes tours, car rentals, hotels, and these brands have worked with millions of tourists visiting Italy since 1987. And our CEO wanted to find a way to help his clients have their best trip to Italy ever. So he came up with Italia Pass. And what Italia Pass actually is it's a membership benefits program. So an Italia Pass membership is $149 and it brings over $650 in value for your Italy travels. And we also have a free community, which is the community that I manage, where you can come on over to the Italia Pass community, ask any questions you have, and we'll get those answered for you. So that just gives you an idea of where we're coming from. Here's what we're going to talk about today. First of all, we're going to dive into when you arrive at the airport, which is known as FCO Fiumicino, also known as Leonardo da Vinci Airport, and how to get into the city from the airport. It's about a half an hour outside of the city center. We'll tell you a little bit about a lounge that we have that you can use at Rome Termini Station if you're a member with us. I'll also be giving you an overview of how public transport works here in the city and talking a little bit about restaurants, what might be a little different than you're used to, and how to avoid some of the most common tourist traps so that you can be more like a local when you're visiting. Sophia will tell you a little bit about how to get complimentary access to some of the most iconic museums and sites here in Rome and also in Florence, and how you can get $100 off of an Italia Tours experience. I'll close out with a few of my favorite local tips, and then we'll move into a live Q&A session. That will be a 15-minute session, and it will work with the chat functionality. So there's a Q&A icon on the bottom of your screen. You can click into that chat box, type any questions you have. You can type them throughout the webinar as they're coming up as well. That way they all get recorded for me in Zoom. And so even if we don't manage to cover all of your questions during this live session that we have 15 minutes for, just make sure you type your question in, because any that we don't answer live, I go back through and answer offline. And then I post a recap of all the questions with their answers in the community. And you will be receiving an email following this because you registered, you're on my list. You'll get an email that will include a recording of this webinar, as well as a recap of the Q&A. So, and also a list of some of the resources we're going to talk about today. So let's dive right in and learn about how to get into the city from the airport. Take it away, Sophia.
Thank you, Shelley, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So yeah, let's get started. Now you've landed at FCO. FCO is the airport, one of the main airport in Rome. It's where most international flights land. So once you get here, you'll have a few options to get into the city of Rome. As you see on the slide, they're all indicated in the terminal, so you'll have no trouble getting around. The first one, of course, is the first option to reach the center of the city is by train. There's two main options to reach Rome by train. One is reaching Roma Termini, which is the main train station in Rome. The train that goes there is an express nonstop train called Leonardo Express. It's a direct train, as I mentioned. It's around $16 on Italia Rail, and it's I would say the most popular train to get into Rome. However, there's also another type of train. It doesn't really have a fancy name like Leonardo Express, but it's just a regular regional train that you can get. And it's the same station, I believe, at FCO, but it gets to two stations in Rome. One is Trastevere and the other one is Ostiense. So depending on which part of Rome you're trying to reach, you may prefer one or the other. Both trains are considered regionals. I believe the second, more generic, so to speak, regional trains are a bit cheaper. They're around $10 on Italiarail, but they're both very good options to get into the center of Rome. Again, depending on which part of the city you're trying to get to. We generally get a lot of questions on whether you should book in advance or, book directly on arrival. And I would recommend booking these tickets in advance, especially if you're traveling during high season, which would be just about now. It will last until October, I would say. And during this time period, the queues can get very long. The servers can get overwhelmed. So I would just make sure you secure, a space at the best departure time before you actually arrive at FCO. Just be careful. If you do decide to book the Leonardo Express, those tickets are time specific. So make sure, that you calculate your arrival time so that you don't have a delay. So that time, I would suggest actually, I would suggest booking the Leonardo Express or again, any of the trains going into Rome, 1 hour and a half to 2 hours after your scheduled landing time. And definitely no trains out of Roma Termini. So if you're trying to get to another city in Italy, let's say Florence, Venice, Naples, I would book those at least 3 hours after your scheduled arrival time at FCO. Just, to accommodate for delays, luggage issues, any unforeseen airport events. And of course, these places are quite big. Both FCO and Roma Termini are pretty big spaces. They're very easy to navigate. I don't want to worry you, but it takes a few minutes, I would say, to find your way around. So yeah, just make sure that you live that window, and you should be fine. So yeah, that's it for trains. Another option to reach the city, of course, is taxis, as you see here. They have a fixed rate of 55 euros, so that's pretty standard. Or of course, other options include taking a shuttle bus or booking a private transfer with us. Our private transfers are usually operated by minivans, and they can take you straight to your accommodation in Rome or Rome Termini, wherever you need to be in the city, we can take you essentially. And they're bookable on italiatours.com. So, or if you prefer to reach out to a specialist like myself, we can also set that up for you. Either way, they're very easy to access. Next up, should I rent a car? So this is a question that comes up a lot, of course. And I would say there's no universal answer. However, I can give you some tips to help you decide. So for example, I would say the main rule is if you know you're going to be exploring some more remote areas of Italy, let's say some popular ones are the Tuscan countryside or the Amalfi Coast. Then in this case, renting a car would be a great option. These areas are not as well connected by public transport as the main cities. So having a car can be a great advantage. However, if you decide that you're only going to stay in the main cities or traveling in between, again, let's say Rome, Florence, Venice, that's a popular itinerary. In this case, I would not recommend booking a car, mostly because traveling between these cities is really easy by train. They're all connected by high speed. There's a high speed network that connects them all, or at least most of them. And so getting to and from these places is very easy. And once you're actually in the cities, driving is just not a great experience, I would say. It varies from city to city, but generally there's a lot of very strict traffic rules. Parking can be an issue, especially within cities that have, a historical center within the city walls. It just gets very tricky, very complicated, even for the locals. And of course, there's plenty of public transport options in most of these cities. So unless you're planning to go outside, I would not recommend getting a car. However, it's up to you. If you do decide to rent a car, you can do so on our platform Italia Drive. And as members, you would benefit from a $10 discount that you can redeem on your booking after your booking by contacting us. Another perk of being a member is the access to our Italia Pass Lounge, which is located inside Roma Termini. That's the station that I mentioned earlier, the main one in Rome. And yeah, it's a great place to hang out if you have some free time before, let's say, boarding a train or waiting for your hotel check-in time. You're welcome to come and visit us. We have free Wi-Fi, espresso, refreshments. We also offer free luggage storage for both carry-ons or larger suitcases. Um, we only ask that you book a visit beforehand. You can do so through our emails. We have a system for to book the visits in advance. This is just so that we know you're coming. We have a lounge host there that will be happy to welcome you. And of course, if you have any questions about your visit in Rome or about your membership, anything that you might need, the host will be there. We'll just need to know that you're coming to visit us. So yeah, that's it for the lounge. Now I'll hand it over to Shelley for some information on public transport within Rome.
Okay, great. Thank you. So here we are with public transport in Rome. It is called ATAC. That's the name of the company. And we have three main types of ways you can get around with our public transport system. The main way is with the buses. We do have a subway system here, an underground. It's known as the metro. That's short for Metropolitana. It's a very easy system to navigate because there's only two lines, A line and B line, and they only cross at one point. So if you have to switch from one line to the next, you can only intersect and cross to the other line at one station. And that's Termini, which we've already mentioned a couple of times, is a very central transport hub here in Rome. There are also a few streetcars and trams. You might take one of those in the downtown central area, number 8. That one passes by Piazza Venezia, but otherwise you probably won't run into those too much. Now, as far as tickets go, they're very economical compared to other large European cities. They cost €1.50, and these tickets are time limited. So you don't have to worry about anything like zones, changing prices for going to different areas. You buy your one ticket is good for 100 minutes, unlimited rides on public transport. The 100 minutes starts when you validate your ticket, when you board your first method of public transport. So if you board the bus, then it starts then. If you have a paper ticket, you'll validate it in the machine on the bus. And I'll talk just a minute about the tap and go system also as a payment method to get a ticket. The only exception to this unlimited ride, unlimited 100 minutes, is that it's only good for one ride on the subway. So what that means is that once you board the subway, you can ride as long as you want within that 100 minutes and change from A line to B line. But once you exit the station, that ticket will no longer be valid for another subway ride. You'd have to get another subway ticket. Even if it has more minutes on it, it's only good for one ride. So the tap and go system that I mentioned is a very convenient way to get your tickets. It uses the contactless payment method, so you can tap a contactless payment card such as a MasterCard or a Visa that has a chip. You tap those on the turnstile entrances into the subway, and most buses have these as well now. So you probably won't need a paper ticket for most methods of public transport. However, be aware that each rider needs to have their own contactless payment method. So you cannot use the same card for more than one rider. Now, the reason for that is that in Rome, it's kind of an honor system on the buses. Now, on the metro, you're going to pass through a turnstile. You have to show a ticket. So there aren't inspectors on the subway. They're assuming that since you got through the turnstile, you're a ticketed passenger. Buses, on the other hand, do not have anyone checking. You're going to board the bus. You won't have any interaction with the driver. You're just going to simply board the bus. No one's going to check your ticket. You cannot purchase tickets on board from the driver. If it has a tap and go, you can use your contactless payment card or your smartphone if you have a contactless payment like Apple Pay. However, inspectors can and sometimes do board the buses to check tickets. And if they do that, you're going to have to show the card or the contactless payment method that you used for each individual rider. That counts as your ticket. Now, speaking of tickets, that you can also get a paper ticket known as a biglietto in Italian. You can buy those at machines in the subway stations. You can also buy them at what are known as tabaccherie. Those are tobacconist shops. They're easy to identify because over the door you'll see a sign that has a T, or at newsstands, which are spread throughout the city. It could be a good idea to have a biglietto or two on hand just in case if you don't have a contactless payment method, or if you board a bus that doesn't happen to have tap and go, it can be a good thing to have if you think you're going to be riding public transport. Last but not least, I wanted to share with you something about a bus route that's both positive and a little more challenging. So Bus 64 is a really good bus route for visitors because it goes from the central station, Termini, and it crosses the downtown. It goes all the way over to the Vatican. So that's going to be a good route for you to hit most of the main tourist areas back and forth. The only thing is, given that it's so popular with visitors and tourists, it can also tend to be a magnet for pickpockets. Now, something that you'll see a lot on social media, people, oh, you're going to get pickpocketed, it's dangerous. Do not worry. I've lived here for over 20 years, and knock on wood, I have never been pickpocketed, not even once. Not even in my early days when I wasn't so confident going around here. But the reason for that is if you look like you know where you're going, you're not distracted. If you have a purse, you've got it like a crossbody bag, you have your hand on your belongings, men with your wallets, keep them like in an inner pocket or your front pocket. Just be aware of your surroundings. And so these are tips that are in crowded areas. So Bus 64 can get pretty crowded in high season. This also applies to any crowded area where you might be bumping into people because of course pickpockets take advantage of when a crowd is jostling, right? Because you're not going to notice necessarily if somebody bumps you, if somebody takes your, they're very skilled. However, I do not want you to worry. Rome is a very safe city. We're very low. It's not a violent crime city, but petty crime is an issue with tourists. But it's the same as in any large European city or any large American city. Just be cautious, be aware of your surroundings, don't look distracted, and you will be just fine. Now let's talk about some fun things about eating out. I hope you're going to enjoy our delicious Roman food here in Rome. A couple things about restaurants that people often ask or find out when they get here that might be a little different than what you're used to. We eat a little bit later than what you might be used to, say in the US or Canada. We start lunch anywhere from 1 to 1:30 in restaurants, and dinner starts from 8 to 8:30. That's a typical start time for the dinner and lunch. The reason I tell you that is if you go to a local Rome restaurant and it's only open for lunch or dinner, it may not be open outside of those hours, or reservations may not be taken outside of those hours. That doesn't mean you won't eat outside of those hours. There's plenty of restaurants open all day long, but I'm talking about specific local, really local places. Those are typical eating times. The reason I put check on the bullet point list here, which in Italian is il conto, if you want to ask for it like a local, is because a little something different that I've noticed visitors have run into here is sometimes they might be expecting the wait staff to bring their check automatically. A lot of times, for example, from in the US where I'm from, the wait staff will bring your food and leave the check there and say, okay, I'll take this when you're ready. It's the exact opposite here. Most times, 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, your wait staff is not going to bring your check unless you ask for it. And the reason for that is they want to respect the fact that you are spending your time with your friends and family at dinner. It's a cultural thing here that you're not to feel rushed. This is your quality time with your family and friends. They don't want you to feel like they're ushering you out, trying to turn the table. So you got to let them know when you're ready. And then that's their way of being courteous to you. And then they'll bring it right away. So I just don't want anyone to feel like, gosh, this wait staff is not doing their job. Why is our check not arriving? Just ask and they'll bring it. They're trying to respect your quality time with your dining companions. Tipping is a big question that we get. It might be a welcome relief to know that when you're here in Rome and in Italy in general, you won't need to tip at restaurants. Tips aren't expected. The waitstaff makes a regular salary. No one works for tips around here. So certainly we would never tip anything like 10%, 20%. If you want to show courtesy, if you feel like you had a really exceptional meal, you enjoyed the service, sometimes people will leave maybe €1 per person, but it's mostly just a courtesy. My friends here, nobody really tips when we go out to eat. So just be aware of that. Don't let any like touristy restaurants try to make you believe that you have to owe like 20% tip. That's not the custom here. Same goes for taxis while we're on the subject of tipping. You don't need to tip a taxi driver. If you're paying in cash, it's courteous to round up to the next euro so that the driver doesn't have to make small change. But you can pay with cards now in the taxis here as well. Next, gelato. I hope you're gonna try the delicious gelato here in Rome. Two things to look out for that are little touristy traps. That photo you see in the bottom right corner shows gelato, just a mound of gelato coming over the top of the tub. That's probably a sure sign that it's not the most typical local gelato. They whip a lot of air into it to make it look showy for the visitors, but any local Roman would know that that's not good, authentic gelato. It's probably not going to come over the top of the tub. Most great gelato places, when you get there, a lot of them are going to look like they're almost half gone because the gelato needs to be fresh. It's made daily. Some gelato places, in fact, will just have a metal top on top of the tub. So you won't even actually see the gelato itself. You'll just have to look at the menu of flavors and order. Another thing goes for overly bright colors. That's a sure sign that it's artificial coloring. Avoid any gelataio worth his or her salt would never use artificial coloring. So the fruit flavor is going to be more pale colored because they're authentic. Restaurants, so a couple things to look out for. If you see pictures on the menu, that's a sure tip off that that's geared towards tourists, because obviously Romans don't need a picture of what they're eating. They know what it looks like. What I call promoters, these people that stand outside of the restaurants downtown and try to usher you in and kind of like call you inside the restaurant. A local restaurant would never need to do that because they don't need to ask people off the street to come in. The locals know where they like to eat. So I will have a couple recommendations in my resources list of some local favorites that I and my friends like to eat at. And all that said, if you're going to one of these restaurants, are you going to have a terrible meal? Probably not. It'll probably be passable. But if you're here in Rome, you're probably going to want to eat somewhere like the locals do. So those are just a couple things that are tip-offs. You're going to find those by the Colosseum, by the Pantheon, by the main tourist areas. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Sophia to talk to you about how to get into the sites and complimentary access to a few areas.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, so now you're in Rome, and there's a lot of exciting sites that you'll get to see. Let's start off from a classic, the Colosseum. Italia Pass members do get a free tour of the Colosseum, which features exclusive access to the arena floor through the iconic Gladiators Gate. So if you're in Rome for a few days, or even if you're just passing by, definitely make sure to stop by. It's the Colosseum. It looks great from the outside and even better from the inside, in my opinion. So yeah, for our members, again, it is free and it's a fully guided tour. So make sure that you take advantage of that. And a more recent benefit that we got is access to the Pantheon as well. The access to the Pantheon is a self-guided tour, so there will not be a guide to guide you through the monument. But I would still recommend, again, if you have some time to spare, definitely make sure that you visit, that you pay the Pantheon a visit. It's one of the most beautiful places in Rome. Again, in my opinion, I'm sure everybody has different tastes. It's not as I would say not as crowded as the Colosseum most of the time. Again, depends on the season and just how touristic that month is. But overall, it's a great place. And if you have some time, definitely make sure that you stop by. Then, of course, in Rome, we have other guided tours, for example, of the Vatican, walking tours of the city. Usually they include highlights like Piazza Navona, the Spanish Steps, the Trevi Fountain. So definitely all fan favorites, so to speak. And if you have, I would say, at least 2 days to spend in Rome, we actually have a tour bundle that's called the Rome Tour Pass. And it's the most ideal tour arrangement, let's say, for people who have, again, just a few days, because this bundle includes everything that I've just mentioned. So the Colosseum, the Vatican, and walking tours of the city. And usually we manage to combine them all within 48 hours. So if you're, just passing by, if you have a couple of days in Rome and you're not sure how to tackle them, I believe that might be a good idea. If you choose one of these tours or any of the other ones that are available on italiatours.com, know that our members get $100 off on their first tour booking, and 10% off of any subsequent tours. You can book all of these, as I mentioned, on italiatours.com. And of course, if you have any questions about the tours or the membership or how to redeem all of these things, please feel free to reach out. We're always there. And the one thing that I would recommend just, right away is if you can, book these tours as much in advance as possible. I would say as soon as you're aware of your dates, as soon as you know when you're going to be in Rome, I would recommend locking in, especially the Vatican tours and the Colosseum tours. They tend to sell out really, really fast. So, last minute reservations can be tricky to accommodate. We always try our best, but there is, a very limited space. So yeah, just make sure that as soon as you know you'll be in Rome in a specific during a specific week or some specific days. If you want to see these places, make sure to lock your reservation in. We also get frequent questions about the dress code for these tours. And a general rule is if you'd like to visit the Vatican or any of the main basilicas or duomos, any of the churches in the city, and even in other major cities, you'll need to wear clothes that cover your shoulders and your knees. This is especially true for the Vatican, but I would say it's a rule that's observed in most churches in Italy. But apart from that, there's no specific rules. It's just, again, the shoulders and the knees. For the Colosseum or any other monument or highlight, there's no specific dress code. Just anything that's comfortable, I would recommend. Of course, places like the Colosseum or the Roman Forum, there's quite a bit to explore. You'll walk around, so having something that's comfortable is a good idea. And the last tip I would say is you in these places you won't be able to bring large bags or strollers, for example, just big objects will not pass security. So make sure that you have a crossbody bag or just something smaller that would be convenient in these situations if you decide to visit. Next up, we have the Bellissimo edition. This is a special offer for our members. It's free access to a special Vatican City edition of Italy Magazine. Italy Magazine, in case you haven't run into it yet, is one of our partner brands. It's a magazine dedicated to all things Italy. And this special edition is crafted to give you insider tips into visiting iconic landmarks within the Vatican during this very special year. This year is the Jubilee. I would say the issue is crafted for first-time visitors, as well as anyone who's already been to the Vatican and needs a refresher. So make sure to check it out. In order to get access, you'll just have to fill out a brief survey, and you'll find all the information included in the community. And now back to Shelley for some local tips.
Thank you. So we're going to wrap up with a couple of my local tips that I always like to tell people about when they come here. So you see this water fountain in the photo, that's called a nasone, which means big nose. And the reason it's called a big nose is because of the way the spigot is shaped. It's just a nickname. And so these water fountains, there's thousands of them scattered all over the city. The water runs continuously, like you see in the photo. It comes from deep underground, from a spring. It's ice cold when it comes out. So it's wonderful, especially this time of year, high season, summer. So just bring a refillable water bottle, and you don't need to buy plastic. And in fact, in the resource list I'm going to share with you, I will provide the link to a smartphone app from the local water utility, and it highlights and shows for you on a map where all the Nazzoni are located so that you know where you're going to get your next water bottle refill. So that's a good tip to avoid spending extra cash downtown on water bottles. Oh, and a special local tip, I almost forgot. If you want to drink like a local, even if you don't have like a plastic water bottle or a refillable water bottle, you can plug your thumb on the bottom of the spigot. You can't see it here, but there's a little tiny hole on the top. And when you plug the hole of the spigot, the backflow makes water come out of the top hole, which is like a drinking fountain. The only thing I always tell people is watch out if anyone's walking by because it shoots pretty far. So if you're not ready to drink out of it, you might hit somebody going by, but they might be refreshed because it's so hot right now. But anyway, that's a local tip. You'll see locals drinking out of these water fountains that way as well. Last but not least, have an aperitivo. You may be aware of it goes around a lot on social media. The Aperol Spritz is an iconic drink you see in that photo. This particular place is a place I like in Trastevere. It's called Meccanismo. The reason I like it is because for 13 euros, you get this huge board of little snackies. But an aperitivo is also something you can get at any coffee bar in the evening. So aperitivo time's general. It's kind of like happy hour. It's around 6 p.m., 6:30. It's a before dinner drink. Now, it doesn't have to be alcohol. The Aperol has a very light amount of alcohol in it, but you can even just get any kind of drink like a Coca-Cola or lemon soda. There's a couple of non-alcoholic aperitivi drinks. One in Rome is called Crodino. Anyway, so those are fun, a fun way to socialize like a local before you go out to dinner. So yeah, so I recommend that. And that wraps up the informational part of our webinar today. So like I said in the beginning, because you registered, I have your email address. I'm going to send out an email and it's going to have links to the resources that I talked about, a recap of the Q&A that we're about to hold, and it will also have a link to this recording. I'm going to upload it to YouTube so that in case you want to go back, if we went too fast, you missed anything, you joined late, you can also watch that recording. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we will go into the Q&A. So you see a box on the bottom of your screen, hopefully, that says Q&A. And Sophia and I will go through the questions for the next 15 minutes or so. But if we don't manage, like I said, if we don't manage to get all of your questions in live, type it anyway because Zoom saves the list of questions for me. And I will go back and answer them offline and post that on the community. All right, I'll let Sophia take the first one.
Absolutely. Let's see if a professional driver is picking you up, where in the airport will they meet you? I believe the main meeting point in FCO is right outside of arrivals. So after baggage claim, there should be an area where you can meet up with the drivers. They'll have a sign with your name on it. But there's also an email. Once you book these private transfers, there's an email that you will receive with a few reminders once you're close to your departure date as well, with full information about the transfer. So emergency contacts, the meeting point, and sometimes even instructions on how to get there. But I would say, yeah, usually it's right outside of arrivals. I can take the second one too if you want.
Perfect.
So yeah. I give myself a 2-hour window from my arrival in FCO to take the train to the city. Will that be enough? To get from FCO to Rome Termini, yeah, 2 hours should be fine. I would say I see you're connecting to Florence. That do you have what's the if you have about 20 minutes or 25 minutes between trains, so between I'm assuming you got the Leonardo Express. 20 minutes is the standard connecting time or anything above that. So if you have 30, 40 minutes, again, anything above 20 minutes is fine to connect from the Leonardo Express into any connection, in this case, to Florence. If you have less than 20 minutes, then that's when it can become a problem. But usually if you book the two trains together, our system automatically suggests anything. It completely cancels anything that's below 20 minutes. So if you book them together, I would say you will be fine.
Salim is asking if the private transfer through us is also a fixed price. It is a standard price. I don't know what that price is, though. I think it's going to be a little higher than the taxi. Do you happen to
Yes,
know?
usually it's a bit higher. I would say it also depends on where you're going in the city. So if you're going,
Oh, that's
uh,
true too. Yeah, I thought it was a standard. So it's not a standard. It depends on where you're going. It gets calculated differently.
yeah,
Oh,
but there's a general rule from FCO into the city center of Rome itself. I forget the price of the sedan, but there's I remember the minivan. The minivan can host up to 7 passengers, so it's we usually have it for groups. I believe it's $115. It's a little less for the sedan. I want to say it's around $100.
okay.
Um,
I'll look it up. I can look it up when I go back through because I'm going to go back through and type up all the answers. So Salim, I'll look up the price and I will also put a link for you to that if you want to just check it out as an option for your transfer.
Okay, for the next one, if you don't book the Italia Pass ahead of schedule, can it be paid for on arrival? I would say you can sign up for Italia Pass at any point, but I would not recommend booking it on arrival just because it's a very comprehensive membership. You get access to several benefits for tours and activities, but also discounts on rail, more discounts on tours, car rentals, everything that we've mentioned. And these things usually can sell out once you're close to the actual date of these activities or these rentals. So I would recommend booking them a few weeks, sometimes even a few months in advance. Because if you sign up once you arrive, there's a risk that we will not have the right availability essentially. So yeah, you can, but I would not recommend it.
Okay, the next question is, do you recommend a local SIM for phones? How much does it typically cost? That's a great question. That's one we do get a lot. I think a lot of our customers have told us that they like to use an eSIM, that's been helpful for them. It depends on if your phone is a model that will accept an eSIM, so that also depends. So I will put a link to a company that customers have told us they like to use. I think it's called Arlo. I don't know, Arlo. I'll look it up. Anyway, there's a company that customers have told us they like to use. If you do want to buy a local SIM, that's very easy. There's even shops in the airport. TIM is the most popular national phone company, TIM, but there's also Wind. You'll see those all over the city, these shops, and especially in the tourist areas, they're going to have ads right in the window that says tourist sim. I don't know what the prices are, but I'll look them up for you and I'll put that in our Q&A. I'll take the next one too, since it's a local question. Mark is asking, is there any one best place to buy a religious medal? That's a great question, especially in this Jubilee year with a lot of religious pilgrims. A place that I've found has a lot of religious medals, statues, and just a really comprehensive selection is a bookshop called Ancora, which means anchor. And it's right as you're facing St. Peter's, it's right on the left, basically in St. Peter's Square. You really can't miss it. It's quite big. But what I'll do is in the response to this question, when I type it out, I'll link you on Google Maps of where this place is. It's a bookshop. They have tons of religious books, both in English, Italian, but they have a really nice section of religious articles as well. Another place where you'll find a lot of, just anywhere outside of St. Peter's Square, there's a ton of little religious articles shops. There's also quite a few down by the Pantheon, strangely enough, but that's because there's a couple of really famous tailors, religious tailors that have shops there, and so there's a couple of places by the Pantheon as well.
Okay. The next one, Salim is asking, are tripods and or flashes allowed for photography? I would say generally no, especially flashes. In most museums, they're not allowed. Tripods, I guess it would depend on the size of the tripod. I don't think, especially in the Vatican, or in the Colosseum, I don't think they allow them at all, unless it's a very small one. But I guess that's something that would depend on the specific museum. Once you book entrance to these places, there will be a section on Italia Tours that says what is forbidden and what is permissible. So yeah, I would say it depends. Generally speaking, probably not.
You want to take these next two? They're similar, and they're asking about tours and visiting.
Yes, absolutely. So are small backpacks or regular backpacks considered acceptable to take into the Vatican or the Colosseum? I would say no. Especially backpacks tend to be rejected quite a bit. I believe they can, let you in with very, very small backpacks, the ones that are about this size and are usually can also act as a crossbody bag. But the general backpacks, the average, let's say, size backpack is not allowed. Especially in the Colosseum. I know they're really strict about it.
Okay, so the next question is about what are your favorite restaurants and the most traditional meals and snacks to try? So I have a couple restaurants that I'll put in the resources list, but I'll put them here when I type up the responses. I'll link to them without taking up too much time to list them out here in the live Q&A. Quickly though, asking about traditional snacks, I will let you know that there's a very traditional Roman snack street food called a soupli. It's a rice ball. It sounds maybe strange when I describe it like that, but basically what they do is they take arborio rice and they take a tomato meat sauce. So they make this rice concoction, and then they take mozzarella and they make little tiny mozzarella balls, and they put the mozzarella in the middle, the rice around it, then they bread it with breadcrumbs, and then they deep fry it. So anything deep fry. So this is a Roman specialty. You will not find soupli elsewhere. And it's served at pizza places. So if you see a pizza place as you're walking around, you look for a soupli, it's street food, you can take it to go. They generally cost between 1 and 2 euros. So it's a nice snack. There's a really cool place too that makes like non-traditional souplis called Trapizzino. I'll mark that down in the Q&A also. You might want to check that out. It's in Testaccio. There might be one other location, but that place has some really cool soupli that are non-traditional. So like cacio e pepe, which is a pasta dish, or carbonara. So speaking of that, those are some of the most traditional pasta dishes as well.
I think I can take the next three. I'll try to get
Okay.
them quickly so we can move since we're running out of time. Is there a train from FCO to Castel Romano Designer Outlet? No. I believe there's a shuttle bus from Rome. If I remember correctly, I researched this at some point. It should be in Via Giolitti.
Which is right by
But
Termini. I see
yeah,
it running right by Termini. So yeah.
yeah.
I don't think
But
it costs, I think it's free. I feel like it's free. Yeah, I'll double check when I answer this question offline, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I would get to Termini and then take that shuttle bus. Is Uber available? Yes, especially in Rome. It's available. I was told that golf cart tours are an option. Are they worth it? I'm not sure. We don't offer the cart tours. I've heard good things about the Appian Way tour. But it would depend. I guess it would depend on what you're looking for in terms of, it being worth the experience. Um, I'm not familiar of the other areas. I know they do them kind of all over the city and the outside.
They're all over the city center. I can tell you that because when I'm driving around just the other day, there was these two giant golf carts in front of me, and I was like, come on, I need to get around you.
Oh,
So they do. I mean, these golf carts are driving right up with that Roman traffic. So I don't know, that could be kind of a very local experience. And
definitely,
actually, the
definitely.
weather's been really nice. It's not super hot as it normally is in July. So yeah, and they're covered,
Nice.
of course. So. All right, the next one is, should we have euros or are dollars okay? Nope, you can't spend US dollars in Italy, so you're going to need to have euros. I recommend that people generally use their cards for most transactions. Rome is not it used to be more of a cash only place, but nowadays you can use your cards for most anything. The reason for that is that you don't want to be carrying around large amounts of cash just to be on the safe side as a tourist. If you're going to get euros out of the bank machine, though, I would recommend that you do that with an Italian bank machine. And the reason I say that is because you're going to run into other ATM machines the most prominent one is called Euronet. And you're going to be able to tell those because they're at newsstands. They're in areas that tourists frequent, but they're not attached to banks. Avoid those because they charge really high rates. You're going to see them in the airport, but in the airport, there will also be bank ATMs. And throughout the city, there's going to be bank ATMs. If you need to use an ATM, one thing that you may not be used to is a lot of these ATMs are in like like a, not a lobby, but like they're inside. They're not right off the street. You have to go through like sliding doors to like a waiting room, kind of a lobby-ish area, before you go into, you won't have to go into the bank. But the reason I say this is a lot of these sliding glass door areas, you can't just walk in, especially if it's late at night. You'll see that there's a slot next to the door, and they're going to want you to insert your ATM card into that slot to open the doors. And then when you come back out, there's going to be a button by the door to come back out. It's just for security so that you're not on the street taking cash out. It's more protected environment. But some people don't understand, like, why aren't the doors opening? That's probably why. So just FYI on that. We'll do one more question, and then all the rest that are still waiting, I will answer those offline. So don't worry, if you registered for this, I have your email, and I'll send out that email within the next 24 hours. The next one says, are there a lot of places with free Wi-Fi? Yeah, generally speaking, lots of places do have free Wi-Fi nowadays. If you don't see it written on the wall, like or on a chalkboard or something, just ask. Mostly wait staff, like mostly these are going to be restaurants. You ask the wait staff. So I would say restaurants are a good place to get Wi-Fi. Stations, the train station, maybe. It depends. Rome has a metropolitan Wi-Fi system, but that could be a little tricky to log on to as a tourist. But I would say that most restaurants is probably your best bet, like cafes. Not necessarily coffee bar though, because the local coffee bars are made to like take your coffee standing up. So yeah, I would say probably not as prevalent as you're used to in the US. We don't really have a Starbucks type of culture here. It's not like, we do have a couple Starbucks in Rome, but they're super, super crowded. So McDonald's is a good place to get free Wi-Fi. There is a place that I would recommend. If you see McDonald's, you're going to have free Wi-Fi. And they're actually quite good places for even like recharging your phones. They have kind of booths where there's plugs. So McDonald's is your best option there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and answer the rest of these offline. I appreciate everybody putting your questions in, and I'm sorry we weren't able to get to them live because of time constraints, but I will research them all and get you those answers within the next 24 hours. You should have that in your inbox. So thank you so much, everyone, for participating and for joining us today. We're really excited for you to have your trip to Italy and hope you have a wonderful trip.
Thank you, everyone, and buon viaggio.
Bye.